I welcome the participants from around the world. I also welcome our distinguished speakers from USA, Mr. David Genaway, Mr. Sean Mullen, and from India, Mr. Abhinav Raparia. So friends, today's seminar, the webinar, is on how to get a license from the US government to practice US taxation. So let me tell you, as in India, you have Finance Ministry, which controls the income tax in India. In USA, you have IRS. IRS, the full form is Internal Revenue Services. So IRS in USA administers and enforces the US federal taxes. So to file income tax returns in USA and to appear before the IRS, you need to be either a CPA, that is Certified Public Accountant, or an enrolled agent. So basically, enrolled agent is a license which is granted by IRS. So as I told you, IRS is nothing but a part of the US government. So for getting the license of this enrolled agent, you need to pass 3 parts of an examination, and the examination are conducted by IRS only. So these examinations are now held in India also. And these are held round the year, except in 2 months. So our distinguished speakers will tell you in which 2 months these exams are not held. So exams are 100% MCQ based. And you don't have to wait for the results for months or weeks. You complete the exam and the result is flashed on your screen that whether you have passed or not passed. The exams are simple in the sense that if you know about the US taxation, so you need not mug up the US taxation, you need not mug up the tax rates of US. So if you understand the US taxation, then definitely you can crack the examination. At a VG Learning destination, our pass rate is more than 95%. Yes, it's more than 95%. So these exams can be cleared by you in just 6 months. Maximum you can take 8 months to clear these 3 exams, 3 parts of the exam. And let me tell you, the cost of this course, the exams, is far reasonable than other expensive courses. So friends, as you know, a lot of work from USA is being outsourced to India. India, when I say, it means the big 4, the multinationals like Genpact, Accenture, and other companies. So you have a lot of demand for the enrolled agents in India, in these big 4s. For example, GDS, GDS, they requested us for 200 EAs. Accenture, they also required around 200 enrolled agents. So demand is huge. And I promise you one thing, that in case you clear this examination, 88 VGLD will guarantee you a job in this big 4s or the multinationals. So friends, I thank you for the love, the respect which you have given to me in the last 32 years, and the confidence you have reposed in 88 VGLD. So I assure you, the confidence which you have reposed in me, in our organization, will come true to that and will not let you down at any cost. So we have the best faculties who train you in this course. They have the experience of the US taxation, and our content provider is also the best, namely Surgent from US. So friends, without taking much of your time, I like the speakers to start the session. And whatever queries you have, the last 15 minutes of this webinar are on the queries. So the queries will be answered by one of the panelists or myself. And some of your routine queries will be answered by the counselors who will be looking and answering the queries. So friends, I think Mr. David Ganaway is not yet come, right?
That's correct, sir.
I think it's early morning in US. And what's the time in US now?
It is 6:09 in the morning in Colorado.
Oh, might be he's not woken up from the sleep. Yeah. So Sean Mullen is Sargent Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships. In this role, Sean serves as Sargent's liaison with the National Association of Enroll Agents, helping to promote the Enroll Agent qualification, the certification. Sean participates in multiple presentations yearly explaining the benefits of becoming an Enroll Agent to tax professionals. So Sean, thank you very much that you made your invaluable time available to us and woke up early morning. And I think you won't have even the breakfast. You would not have the breakfast till now. So apologies for that. So over to you, Sean, to enlighten our participants about this course. Sean, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gupta. I'm going to share my screen now. And can you see my screen, Mr. Gupta?
Yes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. As Mr. Gupta said, my name is Sean Mullen. I'm the Senior Director with Surgent. But more importantly, I am a giant evangelist for the Enrolled Agent credential. I've been associated with the Enrolled Agent exam since 1987. And I owned and operated my own exam review course for the Enrolled Agent exam, which is the IRS Special Enrollment Examination. I owned my own course from 2003 to 2015 before selling it to Surgent. I speak 15, 20 times throughout the year to different audiences on the Enrolled Agent credential and its importance. And I make a point of telling everybody what I paid for my tax return. So my tax return isn't done this year, but last year I paid $745 to have my return done. And then when I tell that to anybody, their eyes spin open and they can't believe it's such an expensive number. And I tell them it's the best money I ever paid because my wife and I, first of all, insist that an enrolled agent do our tax return because an enrolled agent is a tax expert. And you see, as we go through our discussion today, as you talk about what an enrolled agent is, I would not trust my tax return to anyone else. My wife and I, we have a business on the side. We had a business that we sold and are getting delayed compensation on that. We have investment property. And so it's a tax return I would never in a million years want to do on my own. And so when I talk to our enrolled agent, Lori, about doing our tax return, not only does she advise me on my tax position, but she advises me on all the elements that went into the tax return and how the final number became the final number. And that's pretty important because the United States tax code is very complicated. There's all kinds of rules and conditions and deductions and limits that are in place, and you have to be aware of that. So to have an enrolled agent do my tax return gives me comfort of mind. But a lot of people ask, well, what is an enrolled agent? When we think of tax returns in the United States, people think of certified public accountants. But the CPA exam, which is 4 exam sections and consisting of 18 categories, there are only 3 categories on the certified public accountant exam that are actually in the area of tax. So an enrolled agent is all about taxation. An enrolled agent is far more focused on the tax preparation area than a CPA might be. I mean, you can have a CPA that's been doing audits of financial statements their whole life and doesn't really know how to do a tax return. So, but with an enrolled agent, you know they've passed a rigorous exam and they are an expert in the area of taxation. So when people say, well, what is an enrolled agent? I explain to them, it is a United States federally authorized tax practitioner who has technical expertise in the field of taxation and who is empowered by the U.S. Department of Treasury to represent taxpayers before all administrative levels of the Internal Revenue Service for audits, collections, and appeals. Represent is the important word there, ladies and gentlemen, because representation rights for a client by a tax preparer are very limited by our United States Department of Treasury and the IRS if you are not an enrolled agent or a CPA or an attorney. As an enrolled agent, you have the same representation rights for your clients as CPAs and attorneys do. So enrolled means you're licensed. You have a license by the U.S. federal government, the IRS, to be an agent that allows you to appear in the place of your client, the taxpayer. And this is, again, for audits, collections, and appeals, which are the three major levels of, let's call it, investigation by the IRS. So you can represent at those three levels. And right now, like I said, only enrolled agents, attorneys, and CPAs can represent taxpayers before the IRS. Very, very important. So why should you become an enrolled agent? So first, again, the enrolled agent designation is the highest credential you can earn in the tax preparation industry. Enrolled agents have the same client representation rights with the IRS that are the same as CPAs and attorneys. And the IRS Special Enrollment Exam, Enrolled Agent Exam, has pass rates that are 1.5 times higher than that of the CPA exam. As Mr. Gupta pointed out, the pass rates for this academy, for this school, are 95%. 95%. That's how good of a course that this is, but it also means it's a very manageable examination. One of our guests in the audience is Ms. Megan Killian. She's Executive Vice President of the National Association of Enrolled Agents. The National Association of Enrolled Agents positions enrolled agents to be the tax experts in America. So by passing the enrolled agent exam and becoming certified as an enrolled agent, you are labeled as a tax expert. So why should you become an enrolled agent? And I always love to use this quote from the LA Times. Over the next decade, tax preparers are projected to be among the fastest growing occupations. As tax laws and regulations become more and more complex, more people turn to tax preparation services for assistance. However, but because it's a seasonal work, which normally it is for most tax preparers, opportunities are limited during the rest of the year, but enrolled agents are more likely to have year-round jobs. Why? Because of that representation opportunity. I mean, when we talk about tax season, we say it's our busy season from January to April or January to March, depending upon what kind of returns you're doing. But realistically, you're probably getting busier again as extensions happen in September and October. So maybe you have 6 months of a busy season if you're not an enrolled agent or a CPA. But enrolled agents and CPAs can find themselves busy throughout the year, not just doing tax returns, but for the enrolled agent, doing the representation work and also being able to do specifically the tax advising to clients. All right. So again, this is being recorded, so you'll have this available to you, but I like to use this slide because it helps explain representation. And again, representation is our $1 million word here, ladies and gentlemen. It explains what makes you different from other tax preparers. As a representative of the client that's enrolled, you can act on the taxpayer's behalf. So 98% of the communication with the IRS on behalf of clients is done virtually. You can do it from wherever you are in the world. It doesn't have to be in the United States. You could be in Mumbai, you can be in Delhi, you can be in Bangalore and represent your clients in Colorado or California or New York with the IRS, doing emails and phone calls and these virtual meetings. So you can act on the taxpayer's behalf. You can protect their rights. As taxpayers, we are given specific rights in our federal government law. And as an enrolled agent, you are empowered to protect those rights for us. Whether I'm an individual tax preparer, like myself, an individual, or if I have, an LLC or an S corporation or a C corporation, a state, a trust, you can protect any of those entities' rights with the IRS. You can communicate with the IRS regarding what my rights are, my abilities are under law, and for the laws that the IRS administers. And any documents that need to be filled out, like an offer of compromise, a modified tax return, you can prepare those documents, and those are complex documents. But the big one I like is this fifth bullet point, or this fifth item, advising the taxpayer on return positions. I told you how much I pay for my tax return. It's not just to have the physical return done, it's to sit down with Lori and she advises me on my tax return positions. How much depreciation do I have left on a property? How much of the expenses I use for upkeep am I going to be able to deduct? What is going to be straight line deduction? What's going to be amortized, etc. And then the EA can represent the taxpayer at hearings with the IRS in the examination, collections, and appeals level. So basically everything up to tax court, an enrolled agent can represent me. And as you see down here below, almost all representation communication with the IRS can occur remotely. So you don't have to be in the United States to do it. All right. Not a big point, but you do not have to college degree to become an enrolled agent. To be a CPA, you need 5 years of college. To be an attorney, you need 4 years of college and 3 years of law school. But legally speaking, the enrolled agent does not have to have a college degree to be an enrolled agent. You're a federally authorized tax practitioner. You can practice anywhere in the world. And again, I state this again and again and again, the enrolled agent has the same practice privileges before the IRS as a CPA and an attorney. And I like to point this out, that the cost of taking the special enrollment exam is still relatively inexpensive compared to other professional exam sections, 185 US, about 40,100 Indian rupees per exam part. That's of today. That may be changing, but for right now, that's the price. And if you look at the CPA, which has 4 exam sections, the 4 exam sections are, $300 to $400 each, I think, for your exam fees. And the CPA has a much lower pass rate than the enrolled agent exam. So you're going to be taking the CPA exam multiple times to be able to, before you pass. All right. So this is where we were going to be talking to David about the IRS investigation. David's background is doing investigation with the IRS. He's an enrolled agent, also a certified anti-money laundering specialist. So David's whole thing is to go in and detect fraud. And so let's talk about what an IRS audit is, because this is where, as representation, you're going to be able to represent your clients. And the nature of the work you're going to be doing, whereas in the United States, most enrolled agents deal primarily with individual tax returns, the nature of the work you're going to be doing for the client base that Mr. Gupta mentioned, you're going to be doing far more corporate returns, states and trusts and things like that. So LLPs, LLCs, partnerships, C Corps, S Corps, you're going to be touching all of that. And so an IRS audit, what that means is that a tax return has been flagged by the IRS. They believe that there's an item within that tax return that may not be valid. And so you're brought in under the audit to explain the position. You explain your position on your tax return. So for most Americans who don't know anything about the tax code, that becomes the part of panic. Now, if I went down the street to, let's say, an H&R Block, which is our big tax franchise here in the United States, and I had someone that was trained, 4 weeks ago how to do taxes, and they make a mistake on my return, that individual cannot represent me with the IRS except for very limited amounts. I would have to go to an enrolled agent and have that enrolled agent review my tax return and then have that tax return either modified or explained or defended by the enrolled agent. So that's the audit process. The IRS does not believe that an item of my tax return is valid. And so if I cannot convince the IRS that it is a valid deduction or credit or what have you, then I will be put into a collection process. And what that means is the IRS is going to demand X amount of money plus penalties plus interest be paid back to them for that item. I'll give you a great example. In the United States, we have an exemption on the sale of your home. Normally, when you sell property and things like that, you get a tax as income or capital gains on the sale of the item. But your own personal house, you were given an exemption, which is $250,000 of profit for an individual or $500,000 for a couple. So my wife and I, we sold our house, and normally we would be eligible for that one-time exclusion. But if we go ahead and buy another house, then that rolls over into the next house. So I don't have a tax hit that happens when I've sold my house and moved to another house. Well, something happened. When I bought the next house after selling my first one, the IRS didn't get a record of me buying another house, and so they thought I had sold this other house. And when I had sold this other house, because I had owned it forever, my what we call my adjusted basis on the house exceeded the dollar amounts, and so the amount that exceeded the dollar amount was taxable to me, and they wanted their money for it. Now, it was a lot of money, and I shouldn't have had to pay it, but I had to go to my accountant, Lori, my tax advisor, and she put together documentation to prove that no, Mr. and Mrs. Mullen, they sold their house, but then they immediately within a day bought their next house. So they get to roll that exemption into their next property instead. But I got a demand letter from the IRS telling me to pay several thousands of dollars in back due taxes, plus penalties, plus interest, and it was unnerving for me. So it was great to have an enrolled agent be able to represent me, take care of the problem, and did it very quickly and efficiently. And so the appeal process is when let's say a tax preparer gets audited, their representative goes to the IRS and says, no, this is why this is legitimate. And the IRS says, nope, we don't believe that. And so you're going to have to pay this amount as a penalty. That can then be appealed. There's a formal appeal process, and the enrolled agent is empowered to file that appeal on my behalf. Okay, so those are the three areas: the audit, the collection, and the appeal, where the enrolled agent can represent you. All right, so this is where we're going to be some questions for David, but I can certainly discuss these a little bit. What things on a tax return can trigger an audit investigation? And as enrolled agents, as you're doing these complex tax returns, you're going to want to be aware of the things that could potentially be a red flag and trigger these IRS investigations. So an individual tax return, in the United States, we have earned income credit, which is made available to individuals that are below a certain income level. And the eligibility for that is very specific. But there is let's say a small pattern of trying to stretch the rules on that to be eligible for that credit when you're not. And so those type of things might get flagged in a tax return. On a C corporation, remember there's multiple types of corporations in the United States. A C corporation is a corporation like an IBM or an Apple, Facebook, where you have many stockholders, and the corporation pays tax on a tax level, on a corporate level. So whatever income the corporation earned, they have to pay taxes on that if it's taxable income. And you'll find that there'll be corporations that will, let's say, deduct the cost of research on something, and they did the deduction incorrectly, and so they might get flagged on something like that. Or they took the wrong depreciation on an investment. They bought, let's say, equipment, or they bought a building, they bought land, and there are certain ways that you depreciate all those items, and quite often that causes a flag. And then for the pass-through entities, a pass-through entity is a corporation that's like an S corporation, or a partnership, or a limited liability corporation, where the taxes pass through. So my wife and I, we have real estate, and in the real estate that we own it through an LLC. So the LLC never pays taxes. That money is passed through to us as individual taxpayers, and we pay on our own individual tax return that. So that's called the pass-through entity. But what'll happen is like with pass-through entities in the new tax code, you have what's called qualified business income. And if you're doing specific types of things through your pass-through entities, like my wife and I are doing, real estate investment, we have rental properties. We're entitled, if we are actively managing those properties, we're entitled to what's called a QBI, a qualified business income deduction, which means the top 20% of the money that we earned is taken away, we're not taxed on that first 20%. So we end up making more money. But what qualifies for qualified business income is very specific. So what is happening, a lot of these pass-through entities, as they pass through the income of the entity to the individual owner of the company or owners of the company and apply that QBI, what's happening is some of those individuals are not eligible for that QBI. So those are some of the things. All right. So your client's tax return has been flagged by the IRS. That means it's actively in investigation. All right. So what's going to happen now? So what this means is I'm the tax prepared. An enrolled agent has done my tax return. And what's happened now is the IRS has sent a very nice letter to me saying, we don't think your tax return is correct. We believe you owe us this amount, and we want you to pay it with the penalties and the interest by this date. If you don't, you're subject to all kinds of legal repercussions. So first thing I do is I don't panic. I contact Lori, my enrolled agent, and I show her the letter. And she will then take a look at the letter, go back and examine my tax return, and then she will go through and meet with me and review the return again and make sure everything we have is legitimate before she then turns around and responds to the IRS. Now on a C corporation, so these are bigger companies. What will normally happen is the enrolled agent will meet with the accounting group that put together the financials on which the tax return was based. So as the enrolled agent, you're going to meet with the group, let's call them the bookkeepers, but we're talking about the accounting department that put together the numbers that you use to put together the tax return. And so you're going to meet with them, and then you're going to review how they came up with their numbers. And if you still believe those numbers are valid, then you'll respond to the IRS and start defending it. Same thing for the pass-through entities. You're going to, the entity will come to you as the enrolled agent and say, we have this letter from the IRS. They don't believe that, this work, we can use qualified business income deduction. And so they'll review with you again. So for my LLC, they might say, again, so tell me again how you manage your properties. Are you having a company do it and you pay them a fee? Or are you actively doing it? Or where are you involved in the hands-on management of it? And I'll have to provide some documentation. Like I had to fly down to a city where I have a property, and I met with the contractor that's going to do some repairs and things like that. That's hands-on. So I will have to show those type of things for them to say, okay, we believe this is correct. Let's go defend your tax return. But those are the kind of things that might get flagged. And you're going to find through your experience as you become enrolled agents and you're doing these tax returns that certain things are more likely to cause what we call the red flag, where you're going to get audited or your clients are going to get audited. All right. So what steps can an enrolled agent take to minimize risk on a client's tax return? So on an individual tax return, it's documentation. On a C Corp, it's documentation. On pass-through entities, it's documentation. If I tell you that I have, $18,000 of interest expense on my home mortgage that I'm eligible to deduct, I have to show you that statement from my mortgage company that shows that is my my interest that I paid. My mortgage company is required to send me a statement that shows interest that I paid. If I don't have that documentation and I'm just have a number written down on paper, as a tax preparer, as an enrolled agent, you might not believe that to be valid. In fact, you would have what we call professional doubt. So what you're going to do is you're going to insist that your client provide the documentation necessary to validate every line of the tax return. Okay, so C corporations, again, let's take a $20 million company. $20 million company has purchased 15 tractors because they're doing industrial farming, and so those 15 tractors they purchase, and they are using a straight line deduction on those. You need to see the paperwork that shows what the purchase price was on the tractors and when the purchase price occurred. It occurred on December 31 of the previous year. I'm not going to be able to apply any of that on this year's taxes if I haven't actually taken possession of it. So if I, let's say, let's say, let me back up. Let me say that right now I'm giving my taxes as a company to my tax accountant, and it's March 11th. And on January 1st or January 2nd, I purchased 15 tractors. But I want to be able to have those tractors, the cost, the percentage of depreciation, be applied to this year's taxes because I want to reduce my tax burden. Well, if I didn't buy those last year in 2021, I can't use any of the depreciation on it for 2021's taxes because I never had possession of it. So if I'm coming to you, the tax preparer, and saying, I have 15 tractors, this is what I paid, and I can't provide you, my tax preparer, documentation to show you when I purchased those tractors and how much they were for, then you have skepticism that you don't believe you can validate that as a legitimate deduction on the return. Pass-through entities, same thing. I gave you the example before. If I went down to wherever, let's say in Texas, to look at a rental property that I had, I would have to show you proof that I went down there. I'd have to show you, my receipts. I have to show you my emails with the contractor that I'm meeting with, and then the checks to the contractor that I sent subsequently for the work that they did. I have to prove that it happened. So what enrolled agents can do is make sure that they have documentation, and that every time they're clicking a data point into a tax return, they have the information to validate that it's correct. All right. So Mr. Gupta explained about the course that they put together using the Surgent EA review. I'm going to tell you, folks, in the 34 years I have been doing this exam preparation, I've never come across a course that is more thorough for this exam than the VGLD course. They have 100 hours of online live coaching. So you take our course with its textbook and its practice questions and practice exams, and you back that into the 100 hours of instruction you're getting with this organization, with their eminently qualified instructors, you get an amazing educational experience, because we realize that you don't have any, probably a deep background of U.S. tax information, right? You're learning the U.S. tax code for the first time. That 100 hours of online live coaching will get you through all 3 exam parts, and then allow you to go to the Surgent course, and in the Surgent course, allow you to apply that knowledge into real types of multiple choice questions, some of which are retired IRS exam questions, and let you see and apply your learning into a 4-answer multiple choice question, which is how you're going to be tested. And with our course, what we do is we provide adaptive learning. So after you've gone through the sequential teaching and coaching from the VGLD instructors, you're going to be able to use the adaptive learning on the back end to have it isolate the areas where you still need to do additional work. And in those additional areas, you can go in and read the book in those areas. You can do additional questions in those areas and walk into the exam confident you're going to pass. And because of all that, that's why there's a 95% pass rate on this course with Mr. Gupta students. And they're confident that they're going to not only get you through the exam, but they have 100% job guarantee. The demand for enrolled agents in India is massive. And well, it's massive globally. I mean, let's not kid each other. There are not enough enrolled agents out there to do all the tax work that's required. Okay. Mr. Gupta, would you like me to demonstrate the course very quickly?
Thank you. I think that's enough.
Very good.
So thank you very much, Sean, for the wonderful presentation.
My pleasure, sir.
Our next speaker is a very renowned faculty, Abhinav Raparia. I am proud to introduce him as my student. He used to be my student 20 years back, and it's a pleasure sharing the dice with him. So Abhinav is a chartered accountant from ICI India. He is also a certified public accountant from US. He is also MBA. So if I start reading his degrees and experience, I think rest of the session will go in that. He has experience of real-time taxation of the US taxation in the Big Fours. He has also worked in a PE fund and a lot of experience in the tax industry. So Abhinav is teaching the enroll agent at VGLD. And I think the result has been 99% from the day he came. So without taking your time, I request Abhinav to please guide through all the participants. And in the end, please take up their queries. Abhinav, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to share the stage with VG sir. It's like you're sharing the stage with your guru. So thank you so much for such a kind word, sir, and for such a lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Sean, for such a wonderful presentation. I think I don't need to add on anything because that pretty much comprehensively cover all the areas. But just to add about few things about this course, many students in the query section, I was looking that people were saying, is CPA better? Is EA better? How is it going to be beneficial if we are a CA? How is it going to be beneficial? I will say it's just like more like a running a marathon, which is like running 42 kilometers versus running a sprint, which is like 100 meters, 200 meters. It's a very short-term course. It's a very good thing that you can finish the course within 6 to 8 months and you're just done with it. If we compare it with any other courses like a CPA, you need a lot of requirement of your credit score and anything, which is absolutely not the case here. You just need 18 years of age and you need a willpower to clear this exam. That's all you need for this, right? So we are good to go after that. If you are ready with it, it's a very detailed course. It's a very detailed course. It will help you in getting a very good understanding about the US course. And again, it's not a very lopsided course. That means you will get a good idea about the individual taxation also, corporate taxation also, and how to file that, something what Sean also explained in much more detail. It gives you a holistic perspective about the US taxation itself. So it's not very lopsided that you're just getting the understanding about individual taxation or just the filing in that case. It covers everything. That's the whole structure of the enrolled agent exam, that they have divided it so that it is going to be comprehensively covered. So yeah, I think that's pretty much from my side. If you have any questions, I think that would be much better if you ask anything you have from my side.
So Abhinav, the question is that after qualifying this exam, do I get a license from the government, US government, or what?
Yes, so IRS gives the license. So we need to apply for the license, which is online. You can apply the online. They will check your background check. Someone is not having the criminal background or something, and they will issue the license in that.
Okay. The second query is that when I clear this exam, for enrolling for this examination, do I need to do some formalities like some credit checks or something, or some enrollment is required at the site of the IRS?
No. So there is no credit check like what many people have asked about the CPA examination. It's not. It's just like you need a basic 18 years of age, which is getting proven by the passport which you are holding in that case. So you just need a passport. You need to get it notarized and everything, which I'm sure the team will help with our team will help on the same, and you're good to go after that. So you just need 18 years of age. You don't need any academic credentials for the same. You don't need that.
So Abhinav, once I qualify, do I get the jobs in US?
Yes, in US. Yes.
Yeah, India, there's a lot of opportunities, I know. So we have been getting a lot of demand for this enrolled agents, but I'm not very sure about US. So what is the demand? I mean, if a person clears his exam, can he really move to USA?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think the only glitch with most of the people find when they're looking to move to US is first is definitely their qualification, because you have to go there and then do any course over there, be it CPA, be it EA in that case. So they waste that much time in the gestation period in that case. So it's a good thing you finish your course here and then reach over there, apply for the visa. If you have anyone over there for the sponsorship, you do that and apply that. So that you will not waste your time. The moment you land in US, easily you will find a job there. As Sean was saying, the scope is not only limited in the India, but across the globe it is. So yeah.
Okay. So can you, we can open the house for the queries. People can raise the queries. So VGLD team, can you permit the participants to raise the queries? I mean,
Sure.
can they appear and ask live?
I got some queries. I'll start taking it up.
So how many times can a person take the exam in a year?
Yes, so it's around the clock testing. So round the year testing in this case. So you can write your exam from May onwards to the next year, February itself. There are only 2 months blackout window. So that means you cannot write your exams in the month of March and April. Otherwise, you can write your exams anytime, any sequence. So it's not necessary. People generally have a confusion. Shall we write first, second, and third? No, absolutely. You can write in any order.
Okay. So for clearing the exams, how many marks do you require?
So basically, it's not really the marks point, but generally out of 140, you're supposed to score 105. So if I talk about roughly, it's roughly around 80%, I can say.
Okay. So I think we have Mr. David Ganaway joining us.
Okay.
I can see he's trying to connect to the audio and video. Yeah, I think it's in. Welcome, David.
Hello, sorry about that. It was my mistake on the time zone. So my mistake, my apologies. Please forgive
No
me.
issues. Let me introduce you to David Ganaway. David is holding an MBA degree from New York. He's an enrolled agent. He's a certified fraud examiner. He's also a certified money laundering specialist. So David is a former IRS criminal investigation agent, special agent, with 20 years of experience with IRS. Currently, he's the managing director of global investigations at JS Held LLC. So David is frequently engaged to represent the client before the IRS in terms of examination of witnesses, collections, appeal division, and before the United States tax authorities. Over to you, David. So please enlighten our candidates, our participants with the scope of enrolled agent in US and other countries, including India. Over to you, David.
Hey, good morning. Yes. No, thank you for allowing me to be on with the panelists here, with the team. And one of the things when I left the government and went into private practice, the first thing was to make sure that I had that enrolled agent status, which I was able to receive that from my years of experience with the IRS. And then from that point on in 2007, I've continued to maintain, required CPEs and so forth through today. And so it's been the credential for me has been very, very important, and being able to represent clients, and individuals and client business owners and before the IRS to be able to help resolve their tax issues and the like. So it's a very, a credential that is very well received by the IRS, because there's extra training that is a part of that versus I'll do a little versus CPAs. The CPAs may have their tax training and so forth that will qualify for them to be able to represent individuals before the IRS. But the enrolled agent status is, highly regarded within the United States and outside the United States, obviously, to represent individuals before the IRS.
So the people who qualify this exam from India, do they have this, a scope of job in USA?
Yes, they would have potential opportunity for, many working at accounting and tax firms within the United States to prepare tax returns, and also then be able to represent, the individuals if there was an audit or an appeals or any type of situation that before the Internal Revenue.
Okay. So, Abhinav, do you want to add anything?
No, I think this is good enough.
So, David, you want to add anything?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. Yes.
So, dear participants, thank you very much for sparing your time. Dear panelists, Sean Mullen, David Ganaway, Abhinav Raparia, and the entire team VGLD, and all the participants, thank you very much for showing interest in this course. And you have any queries, you can call us the number which is there with you. I think it's 976-038. So thank you very much, and have a good night. Good evening and good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.